Hey everyone, welcome back to another one of these more analytical MultiVersus videos. No commentary on gameplay today. I'll be putting footage of me playing about in the MultiVersus silly cube in the background to fill the space. Snowball Fight's a fun game mode, by the way, if a bit on the chaotic side, but a good mode if you're not prepared to take things too seriously. But enough sidetracking. Since the last video I did where I talked about potential character additions blew up, at least relative to everything else I usually do, I decided that a follow-up was in order. And since I don't want to talk about more character additions so soon after that video, I decided to go down a route that needs a bit more love in MultiVersus. Stages. Yeah, the stage list in this game, while not completely terrible, is definitely lacking right now and could do with some more fleshing out. And that's not to say that it won't be fleshed out. In fact, recent updates have given us the Space Jam Court and, with the MultiVersus event, the Throne Room from Game of Thrones. Both good maps in their own right. But obviously, the selection of stages could do with some broadening. There's only 8 in the game so far, not counting the training mode stage, and the variations of certain stages. So, that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'll be rummaging through the series that are represented in MultiVersus already, as well as those under the Warner Brothers umbrella, and provide a few locales for stages that I would recommend to appear in MultiVersus somewhere in the future. So, yeah, unlike last time, I won't be delving into third-party stuff this time around, otherwise we could be here all day. And, well, there's only so much time left in the year. Also, since I'm not as knowledgeable on some series compared to others, some lists might be skewed a little. Anyway, let's not waste any time and delve into things. Because DC Comics is host to a variety of different heroes, villains, and the like, and has been going on for nearly 90 years at this point, god damn. There's also a plethora of places to choose from when it comes to selecting stages from the DC catalog. Interestingly, right now there's only one DC map in the game right now, the Batcave. So, which locales from the comic juggernaut could make the cut as a MultiVersus stage? Well, to keep in line with the Batman theme, the polar opposite of the Batcave could be found with Arkham Asylum, home to the vast majority of Batman's ever-present rogues gallery. Using the Injustice games to gauge the sort of layout it could have, could provide a chaotic and fast-paced combat environment, especially if the Arkham inmates themselves are used as potential hazards. For Superman, the easy solution there is to utilize a location in Metropolis, such as the Daily Planet, as a potential stage for him. Being synonymous with his Clark Kent visage, it'd suit him nicely. Likewise, Wonder Woman could have a stage related to Themyscira, the Isle of the Amazons. Again, using the Injustice games as a sort of template to base it on. For a more broad sense when it comes to DC heroes, and perhaps tapping into Justice League motifs, locations such as the Watchtower could be utilized as a stage, as could the Phantom Zone for a more otherworldly layout, with floating pieces of stage and god knows what when it comes to hazards. And if more DC villains enter the fray, such as what I suggested with Lex Luthor and Darkseid joining in, then their more known places could be used as stages, with ones I'd be interested to see being Apocalypse, the world Darkseid rules with an iron fist, and Brainiac's ship, host to a potential ever-changing layout, and all sorts of hazards controlled by the City Bottler himself. Of course, since the history of DC is so vast that I would never be able to fully talk about it in my lifetime, there are many more locations that could be used from here, but these are just a handful of suggestions, of course. Scooby-Doo's notorious penchant for haunted and abandoned places makes it prime material for spooky stages, adding on to the typical haunted mansion that we currently have. In keeping with the theme of using the classic show's run for ideas on stages, I decided to scour some Scooby-Doo locations that Mystery Inc. investigated, but I wasn't able to come up with much that would work. The locations in question that I was able to find that could create interesting stages would be the Air Force Airfield from Spooky Space Kook, Vasquez Castle from Hassel in the Castle, and the Funland Amusement Park from Foul Play and Funland. I know that the whole spookiness aspect is really the only thing tying most of the Scooby-Doo stages together, but they can provide different experiences depending on which abandoned lot they make use of. Looney Tunes, much like DC, is a pretty long runner with a rich history of diverse characters and locations. Despite this, I wasn't able to come up with much from this franchise that would warrant a good stage, but I gave it a shot anyway. For starters, having a stage involving the ever-present Acme would be fascinating, possibly a factory where their various goods, weapons, and other doodads are made. This would provide a lot of opportunities for items to be used and plenty of loony chaos to be had, even if the competitive scene would roll their eyes at such a prospect. I know that the Warner Brothers Water Tower is oft discussed as a potential stage, given that they contain the Warner siblings from Animaniacs, but I think using the Warner Brothers lot itself, stylized from said show, would probably be a good compromise, since I don't think the tower itself would lend itself fully to a stage. At least not in a traditional way. It can definitely be a set piece though. And lastly, and this is just because I'm lumping Space Jam under the Looney Tunes umbrella here, I would honestly consider giving the classic Space Jam court where the Toon Squad fought the Monstar team a place. Especially since the game seems to commemorate both the original and the sequel of Space Jam through costumes. Who knows, we could even get Michael Jordan as a variant for LeBron. I'll be the first to admit, I'm not an Adventure Time buff, so obviously there's going to be plenty of places I'll end up overlooking here, but I'll give it my best shot with a few of the notable ones. Given its notoriety aside from the Tree Fort, having a stage based on the Candy Kingdom would prove interesting, given the sort of things you could see there and the bright, colourful imagery. Maybe even part of the stage could be eaten or something. I don't know Adventure Time lore, I don't know if that's feasible. Then there's also the Ice King's castle. A lot of people seem to like him, and having his castle be a stage could be a good thing. It would certainly shake up battle strategies if you had to plan around ice physics allowing opponents to slide up to you while charging an attack. Lastly, I'd also like to put the Nightosphere into consideration too. We don't have too many evil stages as it were, and honestly, looking at pictures of this place does make it seem quite atmospheric, so that would certainly be an interesting play. Much like Adventure Time, I don't really know a whole lot about Steven Universe or most of the places it has to offer that could lend itself to stages. And given that there were hints of another Steven Universe stage coming at some point in the future, if past tweets are anything to go by, this narrows the options a lot more. Ultimately, I was able to only come up with two potential stages from this franchise, the Crystal Temple and Gem Homeworld. The latter in particular might have something in its back pocket to be a more interesting stage in my opinion, but again, I don't know much about the series or any of the lore, so I'll just keep this section as brief as it is. This section here is for franchises repped in MultiVersus that I can only think of one stage for, so I'll just lump them together here for the sake of convenience. Since Game of Thrones got a new stage recently, I don't really think there's too much from there that is needed for the near future, but if they ever plan on going to that franchise again, they could use, I don't know, the Winterfell Castle? I'm sure there's something there that could make for an atmospheric arena. I wasn't entirely sure what to do about a potential Tom and Jerry stage either, since the house where most of the action takes place would only work so well. The only place I could think of that would work would be Hogan's Alley, where Jerry's strong cousin lives, who drove out Butch and those other alley cats. I don't know if this series could even work well for a stage, if I'm gonna be honest. If the Iron Giant ever got a stage, I think the best bet for him would be the McCoppin Scrapyard, where the giant lies low and feeds on scrap, and makes some cool art. The junk piles could be useful to make any set pieces needed to make the stage unique among the others, and the junk piles could even be destroyed if you want a more flat environment. I know next to nothing about Rick and Morty, so there's probably a bajillion locations that could be used for stages outside of Cromulons, but the only one that stood out to me for something that could be used this way would be the Galactic Federation Prison. I mean, come on, look at how foreboding this place is. That definitely seems like a good fighting arena to me. That leaves the problem of tackling gremlins, and honestly, the only thing I could think of that would work is the main locale of the films, Kingston Falls. Who knows, with it being shown snowing there when we see it, it could even make for a good holiday map. 'Tis the season after all. This section, to close things out here, will be comprised of stages from franchises under the Warner Bros. Flag that could be utilised for stages if ever the opportunity arose. It's not necessary for reps from the franchises these stages come from to be included in order to have these stages. These would just be good to supplement what we already have. To start on a classic note, we could start with a Mortal Kombat stage, and what better example of that than the Colosseum? A grandiose fighting arena, Shao Kahn in the background observing and judging your every action. Mortal Kombat would lend itself well to fighting arenas in MultiVersus, and the Colosseum is just the tip of the iceberg there. Similarly, how about Mordor from Lord of the Rings? I mean, one does not simply have what seems to be the Tower of Sauron in Trophy's Edge without there being something Lord of the Rings related in store. Maybe even the tower could be in the background, with Sauron's big flaming eye watching you, judging you silently. I know Willy Wonka is a name that gets thrown around as a potential addition from place to place, so how about his chocolate factory as a stage? Between the main room, the acid trip river ride, fizzy lifting drinks and more, there's plenty of bits from the factory to choose from to have a brawl in, though I'd lean more towards the Burton version. If only due to the visual style compared to the classic version, which, let's be real, wouldn't translate all that well in the modern day. While we're in the festive mood still, I want to nominate the Polar Express as a potential stage as well. I know, this is a real big stretch, but it's Christmas, goddammit, and no better time to suggest this magic train as a stage than now. It's a film under the Warner Bros. Flag, and plus, it fulfills the trope of having a fight on top of a moving train. What's not to like here? And finally, on the Cartoon Network side of things, we have plenty of potential places to choose from out of shows that haven't got representation yet. There are probably way more that you could think of at home, but I'll run through a small list of those that could work well in my opinion. Townsville from the Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Laboratory from, well, you know, The Cul-de-sac from Ed, Edd n Eddy, Nowhere from Courage the Cowardly Dog, and The Park from Regular Show. With all the hijinks that comes out of these shows, I don't have a doubt in my mind that these locations can be translated well into a MultiVersus stage if given the opportunity. And there we have it. I make that, what, 30 plus stage selections there? That would definitely give things a bit of a boost in MultiVersus as far as stages go. Maybe you'd like to see some of these stages come to the game yourself? Maybe you have other suggestions. Leave them in the comments below if you do. Who knows? Maybe we'll see some of them become reality in the game in the months to come. Time will tell after all. But for now, I'll be leaving, so throw us a like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more content, and I'll see you on whatever I put out next. Take care now, and Merry Christmas.